without any further ado, the live taping of the Moms Do Weed podcast with co-hosts Patty Lanier and Chiah Rodriques with special guest Mskindness Ramirez.
I'm sorry, I can't get this out of my head. Just eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. I've been wanting to say that since she stepped off the stage.
I love you so much. You know I was thinking the same thing. That's why you did it. Okay. My life is a musical. All right. So thank you all so much for coming to this very special event, this live recording of Moms Do Weed. This is Season 2, Episode 4 of Conversations from Under the Canopy, which today, obviously coming to you from the Cal Cannabis Awards and exhibit. Thank you so much to everyone for being here today. We have our special guest with us, Mskindness Ramirez, and my wonderful co-hostess, Chiah Rodriques.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, hello. Well, this is a little new for us. Usually we're stoned in our living rooms on Zoom.
For real.
So this is new. First off, we really want to thank everyone at the Cal Cannabis Awards and Exhibit for inviting us here, and thank everyone for joining us as well. And also want to thank the Women Weed and Wellness team, of course, for hard work of getting this all going in a very short amount of time. So thanks to Mskindness as well, and Erica, and Ishka, and
Kelly.
all of our sponsors.
Yeah.
Yes, and Kelly as well. So we want to also make sure to thank our specific sponsors that just support my farm and my brand so much. I really appreciate Dragonfly Wellness Center and 7 Stars Holistic Healing Center as well for coming in to support us here today.
Yes, I would like to thank the ladies over at Flower brand for giving us our title support. That was a huge support from them, and to Alchemy 29 as well. Both of those businesses are located in Lake County, and they just show our tiny little farm such tremendous love. We wouldn't do a lot of what we do without the support from those ladies at those places. We also want to thank Milo Group with Nara Dalbaca, and we have our very dear and special friend there standing in the back, who really made a huge difference today by lending me a pair of shoes. Christina Torres, who's also one of our esteemed sponsors with Sunshine Gold. So for those of you who don't follow us already, who don't know who Chiah and I are, I'll just give you a brief introduction of myself. My name is Patty Lanier. I'm an Oakland native. I grew up here in California. And I moved to Lake County with my husband in 2012, and we started our farm, Noble Gardens, together. That was a Prop 215 farm. We've transitioned to be a licensed operation with Prop 64 in 2016, 2017, along with Chiah and so many other small farms. And we are together, Moms Do Weed. And I'll let Chiah introduce herself now.
Thank you, my dear. I'm Chiah Rodriques. I'm a legacy cannabis farmer in Mendocino County. This season, I'm actually planting our 25th season on our farm right now. Yeah.
Woo!
Before that, I adopted my father's cultivation, and I grew up in Mendocino County, of course, is a cultivation region, and grew up during the Reagan era, and life was scary having a cannabis farm. And so this is just like a dream come true in a lot of ways. It's hard. but it's amazing that we get to be legitimate and we get to put ourselves out there. And everyone is enjoying our flowers so much
Everyone.
lately.
Everyone.
Yeah. So thank you. Really appreciate that. So Patty and I started this podcast just because we love having these conversations, and we're always talking about weed anyways, and so why not bring the platform to the world? So here we are.
Hello, hello. It all started about a year and a half ago at the Emerald Cup, when we were both positioned right next door to each other, and we knew each other before that, just kind of peripherally through the cannabis industry. And as we sat there that day at the booth, talking to each other, as I walked around, realizing how many other powerful women were standing behind those farm booths, it occurred to me that I had always felt so alone as a woman cultivator, that I didn't realize how many powerful women I was surrounded by. And so I left the Emerald Cup hell-bent on introducing as many of them as I could to the community. And so I hosted a farmer panel, and Chiah and Christina were two of the farmers that were featured on that panel. And during that process, Chiah and I had this sensation of being like pistons in an engine. We just clicked. And it was so amazing that I, on an absolute impulse, called her right after we ended the Zoom and said, "Do a podcast with me." And my heart skipped a beat when she said yes, because I didn't really know anything about running a podcast. I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that we had something special in our dynamic. And so here we are today. And our first ever guest was Mskindness Ramirez. And I remember feeling so honored that someone who had already established herself in this space as a powerful woman would sit down with us at the conception of something that we didn't know where it was going to go. That could have been the first and last episode, and she didn't know what that meant, and we didn't know what that meant, but she sat down with us and took time out of her week, because a lot goes into a single episode. It's not just, oh, you call someone up. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot that happens. So that was a huge dedication of time, and I'm so glad that you did that. And Chiah, thank you so much for being on this journey with me and with us. Okay, so, it's now here we are today at the California State Fair. And Mskindness, you're a teacher, a cannabis goddess, a mother, a computer whiz, an author. I'm gonna hit you with our first question. How do you do it all?
I love technology. So I feel like those things that you all just said are probably the same. You know, like maybe being a cannabis goddess, and thank you for saying that, makes it possible for me to do all those other things. I chose to be a mother. That was a choice. And so I went into it with intention and said, I'm going to do a really good job at this because they deserve it. They deserve to not inherit any of my mess. So let me get my mind right as I guide these little ones. Cannabis chose me because I fell down and hurt myself with one of those little ones in my body. And it healed me. And then it made me a better mother. Teaching is something God gave me. It was a gift. I was the little 2-year-old making everybody line up, or 3-year-old. You know, when you're like, let's play a game. Maybe not 3 because you can't really speak that well, but maybe 4 or 5. I was like, I know what we're gonna play. Let's play school, and I'm gonna be the teacher. Something about being in a group and facilitating a conversation and watching learning happening, because I really like that, getting smarter in the moments. That has always drawn me to it. And so you get to do all of that when you're in cannabis, because we're building the ship while flying it. So there's a lot of learning and teaching going on. parenting is all about repeating lessons over and over and over again. And cannabis is the glue that helps me to do it with grace.
We say cannabis is the glue that's holding this shit show together a lot.
100%. Like, it is holding the plane together.
Well, speaking of cannabis, usually we're starting our podcast by lighting up and discussing, what we're imbibing. Smoking is my personal favorite consumption method. It's just sort of, I don't know, I love that interaction with the plant, taking a dry hit, rolling the joint is a whole methodology, right? It's like a meditation. And so for me, that's my favorite consumption method. So usually we're just rolling one up, sparking it, and we're talking about what plant we're smoking at that moment or utilizing in that moment. And since we're not doing that today, we thought might as well still ask, like, what are you imbibing lately? Like, what's your favorite strain that you've been utilizing? The Citrus Sunrise.
Okay, so I swear to you, this is not a commercial for our can of flowers. Let me just give that disclosure. But just recently, I came across this new strain called Citrus Sunrise, okay? It is so good. Typically, I'm a Blue Dream girl. I'm definitely Blue Dream. I don't care where we are, what country, what state. If you got some sort of profile that matches Blue Dream, let me have at it. It just really opens my mind and helps me to, I feel like, reach my highest self. But I will say that is what I felt immediately after consuming Citrus Sunrise yesterday. This is not a commercial for Arcana Flowers, but I'm talking about Arcana Flowers. It's the terpene profile. It's what you immediately get when you pop open the tube and you go, what is that? And it matches the energy when you smoke it and then completely allows you to relax while still having this wonderful cerebral process going on. And that's something I need because all those things I do, they come with a very busy mind. And that sometimes can translate into like anxious energy, and that's no good for anyone when you're trying to facilitate thoughtful discussions. So, yeah, Chiah.
Yeah, thank you.
Shout out to Arcana.
How about you, Patty? What are you smoking lately?
Well, we're on this trip with Chiah, and Chiah came packing the heat. So I've been smoking on some Jedi Nights, also from Arcana Flowers, and then I have my own personal favorite from my farm last year, which was cereal milk, which is high in myrcene. And for those of you who don't know, myrcene is the predominant terpene that is going to help you with pain, and that's actually what won Chiah the 2022 silver medal, was the myrcene content of the True Writer OG. Yeah. So that's a pain helper, reducer, and inflammation reduction. And so I'm smoking on anything with that terpene profile, but that Jedi Nights is definitely helping me ease into the nighttime.
Because for real, like, who doesn't love drinking the cereal milk?
How about you, Chiah? What are you smoking on lately?
Well, so like you, like so many of us women, we're just doers. And I'm thinking about the to-do list constantly. It never leaves here, you know? I try to put it down on paper or in my phone, and the list just is ongoing. And so sometimes I just really need to quiet that. It's almost impossible for me, though, really. And so one thing that I've been really getting into lately, we did some pheno hunting on our farm, and we came up with this magical cultivar, which we named the Happy Camper, and it's a 1-to-1 CBD to THC. And I've been enjoying that so much. Really just takes the edge off, because along with all that chatter in your mind, I don't know if anybody else here has this, it just comes with anxiety. Yep. It brings it on. I just it's okay, stop. I don't want that. I want to just feel in the flow, and that has really been helping me a lot. So, yeah, that's what I've been
I always warn people when Chiah talks about that one-to-one, just because it's a one-to-one doesn't mean that you can underestimate it and overconsume it. One-to-one means you're going to have a equal parts THC to CBD component, but that does not mean that the potency is not there. So just a little early user beginner tip. Look at your total cannabinoids or your total amount of milligrams of THC per gram so that you understand what you're consuming so that you don't have an unpleasant experience with the plant. That's an important.
Yeah, totally. So speaking of doing a lot of stuff, you also started something called Club Kindness, which if you guys go to our table back there at Women Weed Wellness booth today, you'll see a lot about Club Kindness. Will you tell us a little bit about like the inception, how that started, just the story behind that organization?
My origin story. On March 29th, 2012, I was 26 weeks pregnant, and I was at the time teaching high school, geometry and pre-calculus, yep. And I slept on a puddle in a grocery store. And you know this, but not everyone knows this. It damaged my pelvis so severely that I developed a condition called SPD, symphysis pubis dysfunction. And it essentially tells your pelvis to start opening like you're ready to deliver, and at 26 weeks, you are nowhere near ready to deliver. So it meant bed rest, excruciating pain, neuropathy, and with all of that comes an incredible amount of depression, guilt, shame. And so I approached my doctors like any pregnant woman, would, and their only option for me were opioids. And that was not an option at 26 weeks pregnant. That very clearly state may cause birth defects in the labeling. And so already I didn't have an extreme trust in the healthcare system, but I had decent healthcare in my life. I was privileged in that way. But this immediately made me develop a new level of understanding of how little the system really cares about us. And so I Google, I say this joke, I asked Siri, hey, what are some natural remedies for chronic pain? And she said, weed, bitch, weed. I said, no, for real. She said, go to the next page. I went to the next page. She said, weed, I told you. And so I'm going through these pages of Google, and it's telling me all these things that everybody in the 80s and 70s, and my parents and my elders and were telling me the opposite. Like, drugs are bad, don't do them. I am the daughter of an officer, so I have to put that out there. That means I grew up in a very conservative family. And so when Siri told me that, I listened, and I started to do research, and I discovered this first new moon to full moon tincture process, went down that rabbit hole. I'll fast forward in the story, got high as, and didn't feel pain for like 7 hours. And then felt a mental relief from not feeling pain. And then went, oh, what's this doing to my baby, my body? Oh, no, I read the stuff, it's okay. I read the stuff, it's okay. And then eased into this place of peace over the next couple of weeks that allowed me to be on bed rest and not be depressed, but walk around and move and continue to work and use my mind. And then I got a call from a licensed social worker. And she said, you tested positive for cannabis. And I knew that you can't test women without their consent. And so again, triggering this mistrust of the healthcare system, triggering this difficulty of finding credible information. And this is in 2012. So that summer, I quit teaching. I started Club Kindness. I said, we're going to go into any house that'll listen to me. I'm going to be on any internet service that'll listen to me. I'll do the Tupperware parties. I'll do whatever I have to do, but I'm going to teach other women and mothers everything I just learned, and we're going to continue learning together. And that was Club Kindness. And it's become a lot more since then, but that's what did it. And I'm now back in the classroom via another fun story, but I quit, and I started teaching weed.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for spreading the
I still do a lot of
gospel.
math in my teaching weed, though.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of math going on in the formulations of medicines and concoctions and things like that you have to, there's a lot that goes into it. So Club Kindness is not the only organization that you are involved in. There's another organization called the This Is Jane Project. Would you expand on that and tell us about that organization as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we started Club Kindness, I originally did the 215 model because I was making some products, and so we had that whole nonprofit thing in our system, and I wanted to always make sure that we kept that sort of model, that I call it an economy of care, that if you're going to make $1, give a percentage of it back to those who have less than $1. And so I was doing that at first, and then, things changed. 215 changed, 64 came, and I was like, I'm good. I'm going to just stick to education and let go of the products. And then I had this hole for where is this support that I'm doing now for the community. And a good friend of mine, Shannon, came to see me one day, and she said, I really want to help destigmatize cannabis use for trauma survivors. It is so important. We know that cannabis can treat symptoms associated with PTSD, CPTSD, trauma, and all those things. We know it. And it's so sad that women and non-binary people cannot just do it and feel free about it. And so what originally was going to be a photojournalism activism campaign has grown into a wonderful organization called This Is Jane Project, where we uplift the lives of women and non-binary trauma survivors. We have programming that provides healing happy hours, and we teach modalities for dealing with the symptoms associated with trauma. We provide support via community, and we have a thriving program, and I don't see her, but she's here. She's over at the booth, that's run by Nicole Redler of Recompass. It's Survivors Without Access. And so we work with dispensaries throughout the state and brands to provide medication, no cost, through compassionate care to our trauma survivors. So I'm really, really, really proud of that work that we've been doing over the last couple of years.
That's amazing work. Thank you so much. Yeah. So at Moms Do Weed, a lot of times we throw out the terminology like we're smashing stigmas, right? Which, yeah. And as a legacy cultivator and as a consumer myself and as a mother, I've definitely felt the brunt of people's judgment, especially around utilizing cannabis around my children and those types of things, right? And growing and having my kids in the garden. Certain people, even my own mother, looks at that like, really? You want to do that? And yeah, it's a plant. It's my lifestyle. This is what I do, right? And so, just constantly through Patty and my work with Moms Do Weed and all of the advocacy work that we do out there, through Ladybuds, the film, and my work with our local trade association, we're just constantly trying to just remove stigmas, and through education and through getting people comfortable with the plant. And as you can see here at the State Fair, if you haven't walked through the exhibit, please do. They put so much thought and information into the exhibit, and the interactive ones too. Please interact with them. And so around the stigmas, Mskindness, how do these organizations that you have, that you're running, and you're part of, how do they do that work? What specifically do you feel like movement you've had in that area?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. It's a good one. It's what Club Kindness is all about. So anytime we have an opportunity to do something that I've been calling representative, whether it be through media, showing the global majority in this practice, so we do a lot of that. So podcasts, panels, speaking, events, giving somebody the mic, an opportunity to show your usage of this, how you use it, how you apply it, whatever. And then we do all the post-production to keep that media living forever. But first and foremost, I want to really change the workforce of cannabis. I think that we have what I would call pharmacists, right, at the front line. These are healthcare providers serving patients in retail establishments, and they absolutely deserve and need to be the most educated. Every other workforce is educated. They have trade associations. They have unions, which we do have in cannabis, UCFW and others now, and the Teamsters. But we're getting there. But we need to legitimize our industry by training and educating the workforce. They are the front line. They were deemed essential during a global pandemic. here in the US. And so we actually, in 3 weeks, will be starting at Guerrilla University in Los Angeles, offering certification courses for dispensary associates and essential healthcare workers or allied healthcare professionals who are interested in serving the cannabis patient and community. And then I do all kinds of things that I think are gonna like bust open the stigma, like being a public mother who consumes plant medicine and writing things like really cool children's books about families who grow weed.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
So as we're speaking of destigmatizing, what better way to reverse the damage caused by the war on drugs than demystifying plant medicine for future generations?
Amen.
I mean, this is how we destigmatize. We make sure our children and everybody else's children can see ethical, responsible consumption, can see us thriving and making money and having great livelihood and beautiful families and marriages while I'm also smoking a joint or putting an ingestible in my beverage, as opposed to me throwing back shots and screaming at my kids. And so we dig. Thank you. Yes, it's, I'm sweating. And we destigmatize plant medicine and cannabis by making sure that they are informed so that when they go out into the community, they can give credible information and stand behind it. And showing it in a garden, with the whole garden, with companion plants, and giving them the opportunity to make autonomous choices over their own health and food choices. I mean, I think Dr. Pepper said it's just basil to me, right? My kids are in the garden. I said it publicly. They've experienced touching a plant. They know it's in here. What's the sticky stuff on my fingers, Mom? You know, those are the trichomes. Stop touching them now. And so real candid conversations. I'll say this, and my friend Danielle Simone Brand says this. You have public and private conversations with your children every single day. You talk about what's public and what's private. Can nobody touch them in certain places. You teach them that. They go to school knowing what to protect. And so there's no shame associated with that. But when we introduce cannabis, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I gotta tell you not to tell anybody because of the fear and because of all the reasons we know. But when you can just have authentic, real, everyday, this is mom's medicine, leave it there, let's read a book about it. Oh, that's the stuff how do the tomatoes help it? Let's talk about companion planting. Let's get into the soil. And so that was a long answer, but destigmatizing is everything we do. I only want to push the envelope. I want to be at the state fair talking about weed, women, and wellness, selling a children's book, showing an interracial family in it, growing weed in their backyard. That's the kind of destigmatizing I want to do.
Thank you for that. And you are at the California State Fair on the stage talking about women, weed, and wellness. So.
The dream has actualized. We women-manifested that one.
Bumper sticker.
So, you know, you touched on how you found cannabis medicinally. And one of the things that Chiah and I at Moms Do Weed, we talk about all the time is that we believe that even recreational use of the plant is medicinal use. There is no recreational consumption of cannabis. If you are taking something, doesn't matter what it is, to alter your state of mind, to make you more available, to open you up, to connect more with people, to make you less jittery, to help ease your social anxiety, that is wellness. That is not recreational consumption. So that's first and foremost. I always preface this question for people with that little tidbit about us. But you just talked about how you found the plant medicinally. But I am so curious, officer's daughter, did you discover the plant earlier than that?
Well, everybody tried it sometime. So I have a funny story about that. And yes, 100%, you know, the difference between recreational or adult use or whatever, and medicinal is like the intention of the consumer, right? It's how are you going into this experience? And usually you might think you're going into it recreationally and you come out on the other side feeling healed, and then it becomes medical. So yes, of course, had smoked a little bit of weed before then. I just didn't like drink it, bathe in it, rub it on my body, you know what I mean? Eat it, freeze it in ice cubes, and do all that until Siri told me to. Before that, I had taken some hits at the parties and done the things, but really was in that mindset of this is just for this. I'm here now, getting high and having a beer, and I'm out of here. The first time I tried weed, though, I was 19 years old. And I was super like, it's bad for you. Nobody should do it. And my friends were like, that's so dumb. Try this. And so I did, and I did the whole, and they took it from me. They were like, never mind, give it back. You're wasting it. And it took like until I was 25 to do it again. And I was wasting it. I know exactly what they mean now. Like, man, yeah. It's okay. My dad doesn't, he knows about that now.
So speaking of rubbing it on your body, bathing in it, all the things, these days, what is your favorite consumption method? You were just talking, one day we were on the phone not too long ago, and you were talking about you're like a mixologist all of a sudden. You're making like infused drinks in your house. And so what's your fun way to consume these days?
Yeah, so that is definitely a new practice because I've been trying to get healthy in my second half of life. I just turned 45, and so I'm like, okay, this is the second half. I gotta get healthy. I gotta, it's always been smoking because of the ritual, right? Respect the ritual. Shout out to Alchemy 29. Respect the ritual. That is the rolling, the smelling, the getting the terpenes in your nose before you taste them, and then the peace pipe, the sharing with friends. That's always my go-to classic. I love it. I'll roll up anywhere. But now, yes, as a part of like a wellness practice, I've gotten back to the original medicine. I've gotten back to tinctures, which is what brought me here. And so I'm loving drops in my drinks. I'm loving, infusions into beverages right now. I am making like mocktails. I went through a June Cali sober kind of just to get my body feeling good. And I started making these drinks at night with my husband, like, I'm drinking too, but I'm drinking THC. And I found a new level of enjoyment in drinking slowly to let the onset, swishing it around in my mouth so I could get some little sublingual application. And it's been like really cool. It's really shown me I don't need alcohol anymore. I think it's one drink and I'm like, ooh, I'm good. It's changed my body and the way it receives the medicine. So I think it's important too in the answer to that question to kind of switch it up sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, fully. I mean, we get kind of, there's this terminology going around right now about taking a tolerance break. Like our tolerance just gets to that point where you're not really feeling the benefits so much of it. And for me, being more of consuming it through smoking and a lot of cannabis because I have a back surgery and just chronic pain 24/7 that is really difficult to manage. Being a farmer, squatting, bending, lifting, all the things, right? That my body just kind of it's like too much, it's not giving me the full benefit. And so taking tolerance breaks for me just kind of means switching up my consumption method or I do definitely take tolerance breaks a couple weeks a year when I go on, when I could afford it back in the day, oh my gosh. Going on international vacations, that was like the time when you took that tolerance break. And so I notice nowadays, like I'm just having fun with it and making bath oils and like soaking in it. And it's so beneficial and healing for all those problems. And I know for you, Patty, if you feel comfortable talking about your favorite as of late, your consumption method, that would be amazing too.
Okay. Well, I have a lifelong friend who's been my friend for I would say almost 30 years now, asked me a strange question the other day, just when she called me. She saw on my Instagram that we were doing this today. And she's like, wait, so you're going to the state fair to encourage moms to just smoke
Hell
weed?
Yeah!
Now this is my homegirl. This is my sister asking me this question this way. And I had to gently remind her that I suffer with ulcerative colitis. I was diagnosed in 2012, and the first time I got diagnosed, I was using pharmaceutical drugs. I was pregnant I found out I was pregnant right after I was diagnosed, actually. And I didn't feel safe to consume cannabis. And so I took the pharmaceutical drugs. They put me on a round of prednisone. They put me on a anti-inflammatory capsule that I had to take 12 of them each day, 3 times a day, 4 pills. And that drug carried a risk of renal failure for both me and my baby. I continued taking that drug with no positive effects for over 2 years. And finally, my baby was born. He was born healthy. And I decided no more. I was not going to be bleeding anymore from this condition. And so I had a friend come over. We took a bunch of our trim from our farm. We processed a batch of Rick Simpson's oil, or what's referred to on the chart over there as full extract cannabis oil. Rick Simpson's oil, Rick Simpson's is a process. That is a person who has a process to help people utilize full spectrum cannabis extract to treat chronic, potentially terminal illnesses. I utilize that right now, today, 3 doses a day. I'm currently under the influence of Rick Simpson's oil as we speak right now. And it's not easy because that's powerful, powerful medication. And I'm riding a wave. But
She is my Zen friend.
that being said, that is what stopped the bleeding. That's what did it. Now, we don't promote just moms going out and smoking a bunch of weed and getting high as hell, right? That is not what we are here to do. And what that brings me to is your book that's available online. And I want you to talk about that book and what that means. And you know the book I'm talking about, so. Well, no, your parenting, your online parenting book, the downloadable PDF.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I forgot I wrote another book.
Yeah. You hear this?
It's because it's just like, you know what the weeds do, right? They give you this inspiring thought, and sometimes you have it and you write it down and you're like, oh yeah, that was good. And sometimes you're like, no, this I can't leave it. I have to finish this. And so I forget because I think I pounded that out in like a week because it was inside of me. What Patty's talking about, and thank you for bringing attention to this, is how to have thoughtful discussions with kids about cannabis.
Ethical consumption.
Ethical consumption. And so we, again, get caught up in this, our own shame, our own reasons for use, and then projecting that onto our children, not realizing that they are these beautiful, intelligent little beings who already pretty much know everything because they've been watching you from around the side. And when you said, go in the other room, I'm going to talk to your dad or whatever, they were like, I'm going to listen. And so they know, and they're getting these messages from society and communities and school, and a lot of them are incorrect and wrong and biased and even against whatever you would be teaching in your own home. So the book is free, it's downloadable, and it helps you to go through the process of evaluating your own choice for consumption, and then your lifestyle, and then how to have developmentally appropriate conversations with your children at every stage about plant medicine and its uses and why you use it and why they should or shouldn't. And the ending stage of that is raising a young adult who practices ethical consumption methods. And so, yeah, and that word ethical is at the top of my vision board. It's in our business plan, it's in our mission, it's in our programming, and always thinking about how are we equitable and ethical in our practices. Because it doesn't really matter what we're thinking. Nobody knows that. They only see what you do.
Yeah, and it's really about promoting the freedom of choice for alternative complementary medicines that reach outside of the pharmaceutical realm so that you have the freedom to choose how you are going to approach your wellness and your medicine and what you're going to put in your medicine cabinet, what's in your apothecary for yourself. Yeah. So, Chiah. Yeah.
Well, one last question before we wrap things up. Comes from this topic too, which is, talking to your kids about cannabis and interacting with your children and not feeling like a hypocrite when you're utilizing plant medicine and telling them not to, which I have two, well, now a 22-year-old and an almost 16-year-old, and having this conversation on a daily basis in my household around the dinner table when I'm utilizing plant medicine, but my younger son is not into it, and my older son is very into it.
And very handsome.
This too. And in the film Ladybuds, that we dove really deeply into that, and bring your tissues when you watch it, because that conversation was very, very intense in our household, and it made us have to really rethink how we do things. And so, how does your consumption change as your children grow older? Like, how has that changed for you? You have now what?
13 and 11.
Teenager
yeah,
now,
it's a really, really great question because it has recently begun to evolve. And I've had to sit down and have conversations with myself about how I need to change some of my consumption practices because of the stage that my 13-year-old son is entering. He has always been very curious about the plant. He has always been the boy who said, that smells good. And he was right about those particular terpenes. And he would say, ooh, and he was right about those particular terpenes. And so I knew he was going to have an interest. My daughter, I think she's going to be a cop, y'all. I'm going to try to raise her right, but I think she's going to be a cop. So she doesn't really have an interest. But yes, recently I've always said in the past, developmentally appropriate. So when they were 2 and 3, it was just another thing they couldn't touch, like the Tylenol in the cabinet and its moms. And then when I knew they were school aged and I knew they were about to have these red ribbon weeks, I was going to have to combat the information that was coming. And so I just went real basic, simple science about plants. I've always been able to say that hot smoke is not great for a developing brain, so you just avoid combustion. If you need the medicine, you can have it. I've given CBD to my children, so they already know that they can have cannabis like this. What's happening right now, though, Chiah, is this boy is like, can I try those THC gummies? Because he's curious. Yeah. And so it's checked me. It's really checked me to go, am I consuming too much in front of him? Am I being a little bit too liberal? What new conversations do we need to have now because he is so curious? And so I've just in the last couple of weeks and months been having to say, no, you don't need THC, and this is why, because this is what it's great for, and you don't have those challenges. You want a CBD gummy? They help you feel relaxed because it does help him feel more focused when he takes CBD. So I'm like, let's just stay there right now. I'm just continuing to remind him of the science as to why he can't have it right now or why he doesn't need it right now. Because I'm fully prepared to give him his first blunt. I'm fully prepared to go down that rabbit hole with him. I know it's coming. I want to be the one to do it. So right now I'm just trying to manage it with conversations about the reality. But it is coming up. So thanks for asking me that, because I thought, it's going to be fine. I'm destigmatizing. They're not going to care. I can trust them. They won't get into my stash. But lately I've been thinking, I wonder if he would when I wasn't home. So I'm having to think about that.
Thank you for that.
He's going to be so mad at me for calling him out. He's going to be like, I would never, Mom.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because they our children they're watching our every move. They are looking at us for guidance, even when they don't say that they are. Even when you think they're not watching, they're watching. You think they can't hear, they hear. You think they can't smell it, they smell it. They smell it. And so there's one other thing that I want you to talk a little bit about. Actually, two other things. I just recently learned something really fascinating about you, is that you are a Buddhist. And that you've been.
You mean you couldn't tell from my crazy demeanor?
Your demeanor is not crazy; it's exuberant.
Yeah, so I am the first and only Buddhist in my giant 6th-generation black family with like 48 first cousins. I grew up, Baptist, Pentecostal church, hooping and hollering, traditional black family, doing all those things. We pray every Sunday. We get together. It's a text message chain in my phone right now with like 42 people on it praying for somebody. And I have a deep, deep appreciation for God and God's highest self. But when I was in my teens, I went from every church to the next church. I played the bells in a Presbyterian church. I think I was baptized 3 times, and I sang in all of the non-denominational Christian choirs, because I could sing too, y'all. And something came over me, spirit, and said, there's a practice that you personally need for your own longevity. And it was through the path of Buddhism, and it was through Buddha. And I have been a practicing Buddhist since 1997. Mahayana Buddhism, for anybody who cares or wants to know. I meditate every single day, except for today. It's been a busy weekend, y'all. But, that's another thing that really keeps me together. It's the glue. And the practice of meditation helps me to manage and order my consciousness. And that just makes every single moment more present and more positive, more rewarding. It's just wonderful to accept people as they are.
I guess what I wondered was does your meditation in your Buddhist practice involve or interplay? What's the intersection between cannabis consumption and your spiritual practice?
Yeah, so it's, part of the Eightfold Path is like right mind, right livelihood. And so certainly I use cannabis intentionally if I use it when meditating, but much like a lot of the people here, I'm kind of high all the time. I wake up and medicate, right? I medicate throughout the day. I medicate before I go to bed. So I'm no longer high. That is my normal. And so if I want to use it for a really intentional practice, I'm probably going to introduce some other plant medicine. So now we're talking about fungi, right? Psilocybin and DMT maybe, and going some other places to really take my mind to a more elevated state. But I can sit right here, right now, and close my eyes and meditate. And not hear any of this because it's a regular ritualistic practice and it's now just so easy. So cannabis helps, but I don't even really use it in that way anymore.
Yeah, I was curious.
Thank you. So we're wrapping it up, but I want to make sure that everybody knows how to find you, how to find all the things, the books, speaking of books, do you want to just give a super quick description of the green book?
So one of the things my dad did was name me Mskindness. He said, as long as that's your name, you'll only be addressed as what you deserve. He left out, everybody's going to remember your name and find you very easily too. So I love it. It's like a curse and a blessing. You have to be nice to people because they will remember you. You don't want nobody, I met that girl, man, she a real bitch. Her name is Mskindness. That doesn't even, that's so off-brand, right? And so it became my brand. So I'm super easy to find. Literally, you could Google Mskindness and you'll find Mskindness.com, and that'll take you to Club Kindness because it's all things kindness for the win. I'm looking for people to join the K Party. So if you're interested in joining the K Party, that's the K Party Club president. But yeah, I try to be easy to find and proud of what I put out there. So Mskindness.com.
Great, thank you. And just, do you want to hold up the green book real quick?
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about this throughout the day in some of the programs, but get over to booth number 3. We're giving out the green book. This is the ethical, there it is again, Consumer's Green Book. This is a California guide for cannabis patients and enthusiasts. A lot of the people sitting here are in this book, a lot of the brands throughout the state. It's a directory. It's got some wonderful historical information in it, a history of California legalization, a history of black cannabis, how to talk to your kids about cannabis, thoughtful letters from industry leaders. And I'm just really excited about it. This is an homage to the original Negro Motorist Green Book. And so if you don't know what that is, it was a book written by Victor Green, a postman in 1936, who told black Americans where and how to travel safely across the U.S. And it was a book much like this. So shout out to Victor Green. This is for cannabis consumers.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Mskindness, for being here. And we want to thank our live audience. So thank you
So fun.
for
And
participating.
thank you to our live audience. For those of you who might have been following us on Instagram, we were live today for that.
Yes. And so speaking of Instagram, you can find Moms Do Weed at moms_do_weed on Instagram. We also have a website. We also have a table over here at the Women Weed and Wellness booth. So please come stop by. We have Moms Do Weed hats, yes, for sale over there. We have some stickers and all that jazz. And this has been incredible. Thank you so much.
And if you want to buy a book today, the author's here. She'll sign it for you.
There you go. Yes, come by the Women Weed and Wellness booth and say hi. Thank you.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you.